Hello and welcome to the day 2 of Advanced Audit and Assurance Practice to Pass session for September 2018 examination being organized by ACCA Pakistan. I am Kashif Kamran, your tutor. Now let's see what is the agenda for the second day of this Practice to Pass session. On the second day today, we need to practice evidence and procedures. And the practice question which I will be choosing for the session practice is the June 2017, the question number 4. There are two home assignment questions, December 14, question 2, and June 14, the question number 3. Now, before starting on with the practice question, June 17, question number 4, I will be building up some key concepts on evidence and procedures, which will play a crucial part in solving an exam paper. Now let's first identify what are the do's and don'ts of evidence and procedures and where students should be strong at in attempting a question on evidence and procedures. Now we know this is a core topic for advanced audit and assurance exam, and this is a topic without which you cannot survive your exam paper. Procedures starts from the question 1, which is a question on risk. And the examiner directly starts asking you procedures right from the first question. Then thereafter, it's up to the examiner wherever he fits the procedures. Procedures have even come in other assignments. Procedures have been part of prospective financial information. Procedures have been part of forensic audit. Procedures have come at few instances even in a reporting question. Procedures have come on going concern. So you have to be good on procedures because procedure is such an emphasizable part of the exam paper. Not just that, you should be good on evidence. You should know how to write an answer on evidence and procedures. You should know how to differentiate them, and you should know how you should write a procedure and how you should write an evidence. Now, in the first half an hour, I will be building upon the clarification of evidence and procedures by taking examples from the past paper. And once that is set, we'll start drilling the June 17 question number 4 in like a exam context, and I will be solving the full June 17 question so that I can give you a better idea of how to attempt a question on evidence. Okay, so let's start on first with a building phase. Okay, so day 2, and we are meeting for day 2 for evidence and procedures. Procedures and evidence. Now be clear on both. First of all, when we are speaking of procedures, what basically they are, how we should start writing them, and how we will gain marks on procedures. Let's start to understand it. Now, first of all, the examiner has written an article on exam techniques for procedures, which will be very, very important. And I would recommend each one of you that you will explore this article, Exam Techniques for Advanced Audit and Assurance, and this article is about audit procedures. You should be reading this article because this article guides you how to write procedures in exam context. So this is a very important article which will guide you about the do's and don'ts of audit procedures, which is very, very important. So please emphasize on this article because this article will clarify your misunderstandings about audit procedures. So I'll be using this article during the session today because this article has some very interesting facts which will really help you in building your knowledge about audit procedures. Now, in terms of procedures, what you should be knowing. First of all, the marking scheme of the procedure. Each procedure you write in exam paper will give you 1 mark. So you will gain 1 mark for each procedure. Now, knowing the marking scheme of the procedure, you should be very good on starting it. Procedure means the auditor is doing something. The auditor is doing something. Procedure means auditor is doing something. What is the auditor doing? Auditor is doing something. Auditor is reviewing something. Auditor is analyzing something. Auditor is recalculating something. Auditor is corresponding in writing with someone, corresponding in writing with like a third party. Auditor is like discussing something with management. So see how many things the auditor can do. So it means the auditor is doing something. So you have to show that doing in the exam paper. Doing means what? You have to show the doing in the exam paper. So doing basically means the action. Doing basically means the verb. So a procedure has to start with a verb because that demonstrates the doing of the auditor. So you have to show to the examiner that the auditor is doing something. So what is the auditor doing? The auditor is analyzing something. The auditor is recalculating something. The auditor is discussing something. The auditor is corresponding in writing with someone, or the auditor is reviewing something like a management record. Now that is very, very essential. Secondly, procedures is something the auditor is doing, right? Each procedure each procedure should have a reason. Should have a reason. Why is the auditor doing something? Why? You cannot get full marks till the time you justify the why. Why is the auditor doing something? Why is he reviewing? Why is he analyzing? Why is he recalculating? Why is he corresponding in writing? Or why is he discussing? You will get half a mark if you just tell examiner review the board minutes. You will not get full 1 mark till the time you tell why. You will tell examiner auditor should analyze the receivable days. You will get half a mark. You will not get full mark till the time you tell examiner why is the auditor analyzing the receivable days. You will get half a mark if you say recalculate the deferred tax. But if you don't tell examiner why is the auditor recalculating the deferred tax, you will not take full marks. If you tell examiner correspond in writing with the legal advisor, so examiner will say, okay, correspond in writing with the legal advisor, I'll give you half a mark. But correspond in writing with the legal advisor, why? The why is missing. So you need to emphasize on why. Discuss with management, why? So if you say discuss with management full stop, you're not taking full marks. So see, every procedure started with a verb, but has to end with a why. And to me, this why is very important because that is the problem with the student. The student never focus on why. They give a vague statement. So please ensure that you're starting a procedure with a verb. And you're ending a procedure with a why to take 1 full mark. And the last thing, when you're writing a procedure, the procedure has to be case specific. The procedure has to be adapted to the circumstances, given in the case study. You cannot go in the exam hall by having a rote learn list of procedures. Your survival in the exam is very difficult. Your procedures have to come from case, and I will prove that from my exercise today. And I will prove that from the examiner article which has been written on techniques for procedures. Case specific. So what is the final rule of thumb? The final rule of thumb is that if I am writing a procedure in the exam hall, procedure carries 1 mark, procedure carries 1 mark, plus procedures needs to start with verb, procedure needs to have a Y, and the procedure needs to come from the case. If you remember these 4 things, you will never fail on procedures. You will never fail on procedure. Right? So if you are corresponding in writing with a legal advisor, so you need to tell why. If you're discussing something with the management, you need to tell why. So it has to come with verb, why, case. So please remember these 4 very crucial things in front of your screen. 1 mark, verb, why, case, and you get you 1 full mark. If something is missing, either the verb is missing or the why is missing, you're not taking full marks. Or the verb is there, the why is there, but the case is not there. You're still not taking the full 1 mark. So 3 of them has to be present, right? To take that 1 full mark from the examiner. So that's very important, right? Okay, now that's one rule set. Now let's start the second rule. That was the rule number 1 we set for procedures. Okay, now let's set a rule for evidence. Evidence in working paper file. That is the second thing. Now, a lot of time, students struggle writing evidence in working paper file. Though the examiner is giving you a very clear requirement that what evidence you should expect to find in the working paper file. And if you can do the role play in the exam paper, the role play in the exam paper can really benefit you. If you imagine that you have a file in front of you, what evidence will you expect to find in the file? You will not do a mistake, because the question is this. The question is, what evidence you should expect to find in the review of the working paper file. So you are a manager, right? And you are reviewing the working paper file. Now, working paper file is a tangible thing, right? So you are reviewing the working paper file, and what evidence will you expect to find in the working paper file? So if you can imagine a file in front of you, and you imagine that I am a manager and I have a file in front of me, and I'm looking at a file of my subordinate. I'm looking at a file of my senior, and my senior has worked on deferred tax. So what evidence will I be expecting to find on deferred tax in the file of my senior? If I open the file pertaining to deferred tax, I should find some evidence, right, pertaining to deferred tax. So I get an assurance being a manager that something has been done on deferred tax. So in the file, what will I find? In the file, I'll find papers. Every evidence in the file is in the form of a paper, right? So what is the property of the evidence here? The property of the evidence is where? Where are we finding the evidence? We are finding the evidence in the file. So when we are finding the evidence in the file, what is the property of the evidence? The property of the evidence is it has to be tangible. It has to be tangible. It has to be a document. So in the file, I cannot find an intangible thing, right? In the file, I can only find a tangible thing. In a file, I can only find a document. So imagine a file and think what is in the file. Does file contains any intangible things or file contains paper? And obviously the file contains the paper. File contains something intangible form. So what I expect to find in the file? I expect to find in the file the paper. So in the file, I expect to find tangible documents. Now think realistically. Each document written, each document written with reason is equal to 1 mark. And again, that each document you are writing, each document in the file should be case specific, should be case specific. So each document in the file will be coming from the case study, right? Each document in the file will be case specific, will be case oriented. So even if I'm working on an intangible asset, so for an intangible asset, I will have evidence in tangible form, right? If I'm working on intangible assets, I would be having the software agreement. I will be having something like the amortization schedule of the software. So the evidence I will be gathering on software will be in paper form, right? So each document in the file has to be case specific, has to be case oriented. And for every document you write with reason, you will be getting 1 mark. So evidence you should expect to find in the file. If you understand this requirement, you will not do a blunder in the exam paper. So what evidence you expect to find in a file? A tangible evidence. And that evidence has to be a document. And a document has to be with a reason. The document has to be with a reason. And that document has to come from case. So now let's get the final answer. The documents in the file, the documents in the working paper file can be, number one, what documents will I be having in the file? Number one, I will have copy of the management documents. Can I have the original documents in my file, in my working paper file? Never. Will I have copy of the management documents? Will I have copy of the agreements? Will I have copy of the agreements? Will I have copy of the bank statements? Will I have copy of the board minutes? Will I have copy of the internal audit report? Will I have copy of the internal auditor report? Will I have copy of the valuer report, etc.? There are so many documents we take from the management during the course of the audit, and all of those documents gets into my file in a form of a copy. So that is the reason the examiner says a copy of a document, because those documents are coming from the management. So technically we need to start writing an answer, a copy of this. Secondly, the document in my file, a document in my file can be a copy of the management document. A copy in my, the document in my file can be extracts of something, extracts of the management documents. There are some documents of the management of which we take extracts. For example, cash book. Now, if I say copy of the cash book, sounds very illogical. I would say extracts of the cash book. If I say copy of the fixed asset register, sounds very illogical because it's like a register. So I say register and a copy looks very misfit. So I'll say, okay, copy of the fixed asset, not copy of the fixed asset register, extracts of the fixed asset register. So cash books, fixed asset registers, even if I'm taking a feasibility report to confirm the research was undertaken, to confirm that the market research was undertaken. Now, these feasibility reports for market research are such big documents, right? So I cannot say copy of the feasibility report. I would say extracts of the feasibility report. So there are many documents which comes from management, but those documents have to be taken in the form of an extract. So yes, I can take extracts of the shareholding register, extracts of the shareholding register. I can take extracts of the feasibility study, feasibility report, market research report for verifying the intangible assets or for verifying the research cost, market research reports. So if I am taking any records from the management, either that record will go into my file in the form of a copy, or that will go into my file in the form of an extract. So if I am taking a document from the management, right? So the management document will either have a copy, or the management document will either have an extract in my file. Now comes the third thing. There are many documents in my working paper which will not come in form of copy and extracts. There are a lot of things the auditor do himself. Documents in the working paper file can also come in the form of results. Documents in the working paper file can come in the form of results. Now, results of what? Results of something the auditor has done himself. Now, if the auditor has done something himself, we'll say results of it. What auditor do himself? Bracket, or results of something the auditor has done himself, like results of recalculation. So I'll say results of recalculation. Result is like a document here, right? I will say results of analytical procedures, results of analytical procedures. These are some things the auditor do himself, right? So there can be results of something. If something is done by the auditor, I can have results of those, right? I can have results of recalculations. I can have results of analytical procedures. I can have results of inventory count. Bracket close. So if I was taking a management record, I was saying copy and extracts. If I'm doing something myself, then I can say results of recalculation, results of analytical procedures, results of inventory count. And that's not the end of the story. I can also have notes of something, notes of the discussion, note of the discussion the auditor do with management, How many times the auditor discuss things with management? Discuss with management. How many times the auditor do discussions with management? So whenever the auditor do discussions with management, so we say notes of discussions. So results of recalculation, results of analytical procedures, results of inventory count, notes of discussion. And the last thing, there might be some documents in the working paper file which will be in original form. Documents, there might be many things in the working paper file which will be in original form. There are many documents, right, which cannot come as like copy. There are many documents which cannot come like extract. There are many documents which cannot come as like results. There are many documents which cannot come as like notes. They have to come in the original form. So can I find an evidence in my working paper file which is original? Now there are so many things which goes original in the working paper file. Like what? Like the draft financial statements. I cannot have a copy of the draft financial statements. Rather, I will say draft financial statements, because the financial statement belongs to the auditor. That is the subject matter of the auditor. Even the confirmation letter from the third parties, the confirmation letter from the third parties. I cannot say copy of the confirmation letter. I'll say confirmation letter from the third parties because it has to go in the original form. Even the representation letter from the management. I cannot say copy of the representation letter. I'll say representation letter. So there are many things in the working paper file which goes in original form. Even the breakups. We never say copy of breakups, extracts of breakups. We'll say breakup of sales, breakup of operating expense, because breakups are provided by the management, right? So the breakups, the breakups also go in form of original. The breakups, bracket close. Now see what is an evidence in the working paper file. That means in my file, I can either find a copy of something. Is that true? Please keep responding to me, right? Can I find a copy of something in my working paper file? I will, right? Can I find an extract of something in my working paper file? Okay. Can I find results of something in my working paper file? Will I find notes in the working paper file? And will I find something in the original form? So this is evidence, right? This is evidence you need to write an exam paper, but you have to be case specific. You need to be case specific writing this evidence. Notes, right? Ali Chaudhary, notes of discussions. So remember that the evidence is in the form of a document, right? The evidence is in the form of a document, and the document can be a copy, extract, results, note, or something in the original form, right? And we need breakups, right? Breakups of many things: breakup of sales, breakup of operating expenses, breakup of intangible assets, breakup of tangible assets, breakup of current assets, current liabilities. So we need breakups of many things. Okay, now that means what? Are we ready to tackle a question now? Evidence is in the file. The file contains documents. The documents can be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they have to come from the case. So let's conclude evidence. Evidence is equal to 1 mark per evidence. Evidence has to start with something of a document. And I have shown you the 5 types of documents, right? The 5 types of documents. Evidence has to carry 1 mark, right? Evidence contains 5 types of documents. Evidence should have a reason, because you cannot write evidence without reason, and it should be case specific. Now, if you make this rule, that is such a simple rule to survive in your exam paper. If you know for every evidence I'm writing, I'll get 1 mark. I have to write evidence in a form of a document, and there are 5 forms of documents: copy, extract, results, note, original. And I have to write it with reason. I have to write it with reason and case specific. So this is the final formula, right? We are using for evidence. Please assure you have this formula in mind, because I am shortly starting with exam paper. And the formula we used for procedure was what? The formula we used for procedure was procedure carries 1 mark, should start with verb, why, and case. That was the formula for procedure. Right? Now let's do that final analysis and start with paper. Now if I say procedures versus evidence in working paper file, I will copy this down, my formula, which is very, very important formula, and I copy this formula down, and that becomes the summary of the session today. Okay, just revise it once again, and we're starting with exam practice. Procedure is 1 mark plus a verb plus a why plus a case. Evidence is 1 mark plus a document, 5 types of documents. You need to think that from exam paper with reason and case specific. Now after that, you cannot say, I cannot survive the exam paper. You have to survive the exam paper. You cannot get that clear-cut formula for evidence and procedures. Will that formula help you in exam paper? Will that formula help you survive in the exam paper? You cannot do blunders, right? Let's start with exam practice. Okay, now let's take a live exam paper and see are we prepared for it. Because knowing something is different and implementing something is different, right? So let's do the implementation. Okay, now I am opening the first question, which is the session question, and that is June 17, question number 4. So let's open this question and put this question in front of us and see how to write a proper answer. Now this question is on evidence, right? This question is not on procedures, because my emphasizable part today is procedures, and approximately in the last 30 to 40 minutes, I'll be emphasizing on practice of procedures. I'll give you cases and we'll convert cases to procedures. Okay, now the question in front of you is from a very recent exams, June 2017. This is the question 4, and this is a complete question which is on evidence. Let's see the requirement. Now, when you look at the requirements of this question, the requirement of the question says, comment on the matters to be considered. Now, that is a very typical question on evidence and comes many times. So it says, comment on the matters to be considered, comma, explain the evidence. Explain the evidence you should expect to find in the working paper file. So the moment I see evidence, I will recall in the exam hall what we learned today. What we learned today, 1 mark for evidence has to be from documents, and 5 types of documents has to be from documents, right? And the 5 types of document, the 5T has to be the 5 types of documents, right? Plus it should have a reason, and it should be linked to case. So I hope you can recall that in exam hall. Now when it says comment on the matters, so the matters over here become 3. This is a typical evidence question, right? And the comment on the matters means 3 matters. The comment on the matter is M, and all of you should know what M is, right? You're all auditors. M is materiality. Comment on the matter means the T, and all auditors should know what a T is. The T is the treatment. Materiality, treatment. And the last one, R. All auditors should know what R is, right? R is risk. Risk of material misstatement. So if you're commenting on the matters, your first commenting would be on M, your second commenting would be on T, and your third commenting would be on R. Now let's see the marking scheme. For evidence, we know the marking scheme, right? The marking scheme for evidence is 1 mark per evidence. Let's see what is the marking scheme for comment on the matters. Now when the examiner asks you comment on the matters, when the examiner asks you to comment on the matters, what does that mean? Right, now let's investigate a typical question on reporting, and that's the agenda for the day 2 today. Okay, let's investigate. We are doing the June 17 question and the June 17 question number 4, and let's see what the question was asking us. The question was saying comment on the matters, comma, Explain the audit evidence. Explain the audit evidence in the working paper file. And the question was for 20 marks. A complete question, right? Now let's see the breakdown and then we'll start reading it. Now what is to be done? Number one, when the examiner says comment on the matters, matters is equal to M plus T plus R. Each comment on M, each comment on let's put it this way, comment. The comment on the materiality is equal to 1.5 marks. The comment on the treatment, the comment on the accounting treatment, comment on the accounting treatment is equal to 1.5 marks. And to comment on the associated risk, of material misstatements is equal to 1.5 marks. The marking scheme have been changed, right? Before this, the marking scheme for every MTR was 111. Now the marking scheme have changed. I think the change of marking scheme has come from 16 exams. Prior to 16 exams, the marking scheme for comment on matter was every comment was 1 mark. Now in the recent past, examiner is saying for every comment on the matter, examiner will give you 1.5 marks each. So in a question on evidence, if you comment on the materiality, you will take 1.5 marks. If you comment on the accounting treatment, you will take 1.5 marks. And if you comment on the associated risk of material misstatement, you will take another 1.5 marks. So see how easy these marks are? You know the same approach, right? You use the same approach in a risk question, in an audit risk question. In an audit risk question, we use the same approach, right? But over there, every audit risk is worth 2 marks, right? So in an audit risk question, if you're using the MTR approach, we are getting 2 marks. But in this question, if you're using the MTR approach, we're getting 4.5 marks. No, not at all. Martina, we are not writing more. The marking scheme is generous. We'll write the same length of the answer, but the examiner is saying for every comment. The meaning of the word comment means brief. Comment is not an elaboration, right? Comment, the literal meaning of the word comment is something briefly, something concisely. So you should be assured of the meaning of the word comment, right? Comment is not an elaboration. Comment means something concise. Okay. Now, knowing the marking scheme for comment on the matters, MTR, and knowing I will get 4.5 marks, then the second requirement is explain the evidence. Explain the evidence in the working paper. Now we just prepared ourselves for that, right? When the question comes on explain the evidence in the working paper, I will say, okay, 1 mark plus documents, 5 types, bracket 5T plus case, plus reason plus case, So we're prepared to take on the question now. And that is, if you do such things in exam hall for 4 to 5 minutes, your execution becomes so good. And a lot of time you just look at a question and start solving it. You should plan the requirement, right? When you read a requirement, break the requirement, understand the requirement for at least 3 to 4 minutes. Because if you understand the requirement, then attacking on it becomes very easier. Yes, I agree, Sayyid Heather Raza Naqvi. Marking schemes have changed, right? So I have to update you on the marking schemes. The previous marking scheme was 1 each. Now the new marking scheme, which is going from 17 exams, is 1.5 mark. So examiner will like you to do that on 1.5 mark when you're going for 2018 exams. So that is an updated marking scheme. I am telling you in the September 18 Prepare to Pass session. So please assure that you have 1.5 mark, not 1 mark. Okay. So we have to explain the evidence and comment on the matters. Let's start going back to the case and start reading it. So we have prepared the structure. Now we have to fill the structure. Okay, now comes your true test. Okay, we go up and see the first case. The first case is about inventory. And how many marks I have for inventory? I have 7 marks for inventory. Inventory carries 7 marks. So if I write MTR on inventory, I will take 4.5 marks. That means I will be left with 2.5 marks. So for 2.5 marks, if I write 3 evidences, see how quickly the question ends. For 4.5 marks out of the 7, I have to write the MTR. And for the remainder 2.5 marks, you need to write your evidences, right? I hope that marking scheme is clear, right? 7 minus 4.5, you're left with 2.5. So for 2.5, you have to write evidences. Can you just quickly go through the case? Let's do that. The case says we have total assets of how much? We have total assets of 1919 million, right? So we have a total assets of 1919 million. That's the first thing. The second thing we have in the case is we have a total assets of 1919. Then we have the revenue. We have the revenue of 1052. So we have a revenue of 1052. And then we have the profit before tax of 107. These numbers are very important, right? Because these numbers would help us to determine the materiality. Okay, now let's see the cost of inventory. Now the cost of inventory is $21 million. At the year end, the inventory was valued at $21 million. So I can straight away find the M of the inventory, right? So if I comment on the M, I will take 1.5 marks. So the value of the inventory is $21 million. Akash Kumar, M is 1.5, T is 1.5, and R is 1.5. So 1.5 plus 1.5 plus 1.5. Is it 3.5? Is it 4.5? You are accountant, right, Akash? 1.5 plus 1.5 plus 1.5. Is that 3.5? Is that 4.5? Okay. Now, at the year end, the value of the inventory is $21 million, right? So you have divided it with the total assets, right? So the percentage of the total asset is 1.09%. Okay, that's very good. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Let's keep that in mind. The percentage is 1.09%, and I'll be using that once I'm answering the question, right? Okay. Second, you can also take inventory on the profit as well, because you are commenting on the materiality, and obviously profit, inventory do have a connection with cost of sales, right? And inventory do have a connection with gross profits, and then obviously with profit. So you can also take the debit and credit. So you can also find the inventory on profit, and on the profit it is 19.6%. Okay, that's good. On the profit it is 19.6%. Good. Okay, now let's find what's the T. Inventory cost includes all the purchase cost and the cost of conversion. So inventory cost includes all the purchase cost and the cost of conversion of the raw material into finished goods. Okay, conversion. Now the examiner is explaining the conversion, right? Conversion cost includes direct labor cost, number one. So conversion cost includes the direct labor cost and an allocation of the production overhead. So how many things are included in the conversion cost? One is the direct labor cost, and secondly is the allocation of the production overheads. Now the examiner is explaining the direct labor cost. The direct labor cost are calculated based on average production time. Average, not actual, average, that is the first problem. Based upon average production time, which is estimated by the production manager. Average, and it is estimated. See the risk. It is average production time, which is estimated by the production manager, multiplied by the estimated labor cost per hour. Is that itself a risk here? Because you're doing an estimation, right? And wherever we do estimations, estimations are subjective, and estimations create management bias. So there is an average production time, which is estimated by the production manager, multiplied by the estimated labor cost per hour, which is calculated using the forecast annual wages. Is forecast itself an assumption? And are assumptions risky? Do assumption contains risk of management bias? So forecast annual wages of production divided by the annual scheduled hour of production. Production overheads are all fixed and are allocated based upon forecast annual unit of production. How many times in this question the examiner is repeatedly telling you one thing? That means the examiner is telling you that the risk in this question is the estimates. Average production, one problem. Estimates, the second problem. Average production, estimates, second. Estimated labor cost, the third problem. Forecast annual wages, the fourth problem. Forecast annual unit of production, the fifth problem. So 5 times in this 7 marks question, the examiner is telling us forecast, estimate, forecast, estimate. So see, is the risk itself an estimate here? So should inventory be valued at the actual cost, or should inventory be valued at estimated cost? So is there a risk that the inventory could be overvalued? Is there a risk that the inventory can be overvalued? And is that the inherent risk of inventory? Is that itself the inherent risk of inventory? Yes. Okay, now let's see how to approach this 7 marks. Okay, now I'll take all this to the Word file. Okay, so we first have the problem cost of inventory, right? So we'll put a heading cost of inventory, the first heading, and under the first heading, we'll start writing the answer. First the matters, then the evidence. So we put the heading in the exam paper, matters, colon, and we start writing matters. The inventory valued at $21 million is 1.09% of the total assets. 1.09% of the total assets, and 19.6% of the profit before tax. Thus, it is material to both the total assets and the profits So you commented on the materiality of the inventory first, that yes, inventory is very important, inventory is very material. Now after the full stop, you change the para and you write the second meta. The inventory has been valued, the inventory has been valued based upon many many estimates, which includes estimated, what? Which includes estimated production time, comma, number two, which includes estimated labor cost per hour, which includes estimated production time, estimated labor cost per hour, which includes forecast annual wages, which includes the forecast annual wages and the forecast annual wages and the forecast annual unit of production and the forecast annual unit of productions. Full stop. 1.09% of the total asset is not very material number. What is the scale of total assets? 1 to 2% of the total asset is material. You have exams on Monday, right? You have exams on Monday and you're saying 1.09% of the total asset is not very material. Something is material to the assets if it is 1 to 2% of the assets. So the inventory has been valued based upon many estimates, which includes estimated production time, labor cost per hour, forecast annual wages, and the forecast annual unit of production. See, I brought the case. So inventory has been valued based upon many estimates, full stop. This increases the risk of management bias. This increases the risk of management bias and subjectivity in how the inventory was valued. This increases the risk of management bias and subjectivity in how the inventory was valued at the year end. Full stop. Change of paragraph. The inventory should be valued at the lower of the actual cost, not the estimated cost. The inventory should be valued at the lower of the actual cost, not the estimated cost, and the NRV and the net realizable value. Thus, due to involvement of estimates in inventory valuation, the inventory value could be overstated. Which could also understate the cost of sales, and overstate the gross profit. See how I did the commenting. Each para contained one comment. So my 3 paras is telling me 4.5 marks. Comment means concise yet complete. First comment was on the materiality. In the second comment, I was telling about the risk of subjectivity. In the third comment, I raised the accounting treatment, that it has to be actual cost, not the estimated cost. So the way it's up to you the way you phrase it. Normally we start with materiality. Now after that it's up to you. You first speak of risk, then speak of the treatment. So till that paragraph, I'm taking my total 4.5 marks. Now I know that the cost of inventory was only 7 marks. So out of the 7 marks, I took my 4.5 marks. Now I will change the heading and I will say evidence in the working paper file. And technically, I just need to write 3 evidences and that will make my 7 marks. 1, 2, 3. And I can start doing the B part. So let's go to the case and see what evidence we should be obtaining. Do you believe that whenever there are estimates involved in any question, is it better to discuss the basis of those estimates with management? Is it better to discuss the underlying basis of those estimates with management? So if I would have discussed the estimates and the basis of estimates with management, will I be saying notes of discussion with management? Notes of discussion with management to confirm the underlying basis of estimates. So discuss is a procedure, right? But because I'm writing evidence in the working paper file, so I might say notes of discussion with what? With what's the name of the management? ACCA company. Okay, notes of discussion with ACCA company management to confirm the basis used in estimating the what? In estimating the labor cost, comma, in estimating the labor cost, comma, production time, etc. Notes of discussion with the ACCA company management to confirm the basis used in estimating the labor cost and production time to conclude on their adequacy. Notes of discussion with ACCA company management to confirm the basis used in estimating the labor cost and the production time to conclude on the adequacy of the estimates. To conclude on the adequacy of estimates used. Number 1. So notes of discussion became my first evidence in the working paper file. And that was the rule I just made at the beginning of the class, right? So estimates, right? The adequacy of the estimate or even the appropriateness of the estimate. Okay, let's go back to the case. Inventory cost includes the purchase cost. Can I verify the purchase cost of the inventory from the purchase invoice? Can I verify that from the purchase invoice, the purchase cost? So should I write an evidence purchase invoice? Will I be needing the copy of that purchase invoice to confirm the purchase cost? Okay, so what should I say? I should say copy of a sample of purchase invoices. Will I take all purchase invoices or will I just take a sample purchase invoice and a copy of that sample purchase invoice? Copy of a sample of purchase invoices to confirm the purchase cost, to confirm the accuracy of the purchase cost used, in inventory valuation. Has the management used the right purchase cost in valuing the inventory? So copy of a sample of purchase invoices. We use the notes of discussion because notes of discussion, anything which is estimated will have discussion with management, right? So we technically started with notes of discussion. Okay, let's go back to the case. Inventory cost includes all the purchase cost and the cost of conversion. Conversion cost, now listen carefully, conversion cost includes the direct labor cost and the allocation of the production overheads. Direct labor costs are calculated based upon average production time per unit which is estimated by the production manager, multiplied by the estimated labor cost per unit, which is calculated using forecast annual wages of production. How are we determining the direct labor cost? For direct labor cost, we are taking the average production time multiply by the estimated labor cost per hour. So average production time per unit multiply by the estimated labor cost per hour. So can I do the recalculation of this? Because the management is saying this multiply by this. So can I confirm the accuracy through recalculation? Can you see that word multiplied by? So whenever we see something like that multiplied by, so can the auditor reconfirm that multiplication? Can the auditor recalculate the multiplication to confirm that it was accurate? So can we have results of recalculations? So third procedure, results of recalculation. Results of recalculation to confirm what? Results of recalculation pertaining to results of recalculation pertaining to direct labor cost to confirm the accuracy of the direct labor cost determined as part of inventory valuation, that is the direct labor. See the results of recalculation. So recalculation is a procedure, right? And the results of recalculation becomes the evidence. Okay, we got our marks. Forecast annual wages of production. Production overheads are all fixed and are allocated based upon forecast annual units of production. Can I take management's forecast as well? Forecast annual units of production. Can I take the copy of these forecast? Can I take the copy of the forecast annual units of production to confirm how much they were? Can I take a copy of these forecasted documents of management? Yes or no? Right? So can I take a copy of the forecast annual unit for production and forecast annual wages? Will that confirm the annual wages and will that confirm the annual unit of productions? Okay, so even I need 3, right? My 3 has made my marks, right? I have achieved my target, achieved the target of 7 marks. But I can write extra points after this. So I'm just giving you thought process. You can write them yourself. You can take a copy of forecast. From a copy of forecast, you can confirm the forecast annual unit of production. So you can take the copy of the forecast to confirm the annual unit of productions. You can also take the copy of the forecast to confirm the annual wages. So can you confirm these 2 things from a copy of forecast? Copy of forecast, another copy of the forecast. See, it's coming from the case study, copy of the forecast. And yes, at the end of the day, because it is so subjective, can we also take a representation letter from the management because there are so many estimates? Whenever there are estimates, can we take representation from the management as the last document? Is that true? So can we also take a representation letter from the management on the cost of inventory? Because the cost of inventory was so subjective. So can we take a representation letter on the cost of inventory being so subjective? So can we take a management representation letter, MRL? So I got my 7 marks. I'm not writing more than that, though. I want to show you how you make your 7 marks. But see, there are more helps in the question. You can say copy of this, and you can also say a representation letter, not a copy of representation letter, a representation letter to confirm the appropriateness of the assumptions used, Ikra Nawaz, MRL will confirm the appropriateness and MRL will confirm the completeness of the assumptions taken. So see how you got your 7 marks? 4.5 marks from cost of inventory, and the remainder marks you got from evidence. Now just one last solution, and we'll take a break before the B part. In the very first emphasizable part, there was a question coming from student which is important, and I want to address that. That question was basically, can I write more evidences and less meta? Can I substitute evidence with matters? Was the examiner saying there is a gap of marks here? Was the examiner saying the marks are divided between matters and evidence? Something like that? Was the examiner saying anywhere in the question, see the note, the split of the marks is shown against each issue. You are not required to discuss any potential implication for the audit report. See, a clarification. A lot of time the student, when writing a comment on the matters in a question on evidence, they also think about comment on the matter as an impact on report. So please remember, the examiner is making that clear on the last line for all of you. You're not required to consider any potential implication for the audit report. So the matters are MTR, right? The matters are not impact on report. A lot of student thinks MTI, impact on report. This is a question on evidence, right? So being a question on evidence, you need to write MTR. So examiner is saying no impact on report, right? So is the examiner saying the marks are equally divided between matters and evidence? Is that the case? So are we open on marks? Are we flexible on marks? So can I write more evidences and less matters? I can write. An examiner is very happy with that, right? In the examiner report, the examiner has mentioned many times, because there is no cap, the student can write something more and something less. You have to take your 7 marks, right? So even in my question, even if I don't write the T and R, and I only write the M, and after writing the M, I substitute the remainder with evidences. I cannot make one requirement 0. I cannot make one requirement 0, but I can substitute them. I can write something more and something less. But I cannot say, okay, I'll write 0 matters and 7 evidences. That is very, very wrong. Yes, I can write some matters and some evidences. I can write more evidences and less matters. I can do that. I can do that. That is possible. The examiner is very happy with that, right? Are you understanding the cost of inventory? Is everyone clear on cost of inventory? Is everyone understanding how to take marks, MTR, and MTR will give us 4.5 marks, right? Is that true? And after writing the MTR, then can we write evidence in the working paper file for the remainder marks? Okay, now we're just taking a break for 10 minutes, and post break we'll be starting on with the B part and the C part. So we'll do the same exercise on the part B and on the part C. The part C is for 6 marks and the part B is for 7 marks. So 7 marks for part B, 7 marks for part C. So technically sounds very great. Out of my B marks, 7 minus 4.5, that's the same equation like cost of inventory. And in a warranty provision, see what is in a warranty provision. If I write MTR in warranty provision, I have 6 marks. So out of the 6, I'll take 4.5 by just writing the MTR. And then I will be left with just 1.5 marks. And if I write 2 evidences for warranty provision, I can exit from warranty provision. So if you know the marking scheme, you can do your question very quickly. And that is exactly what the examiner says, right? Writing less and writing more. So you have to be very clarified for that. So let's take the break now. It's like 9:40 p.m. the Pakistan Standard Time. It's approximately 15 minutes of break, and post break we'll have the drilling of the part B, drilling of the part C, and most likely we'll be coming across one equation on procedures. I'll give you one very good equation on procedure, and I will solve that equation with you to give you an idea that how you write a verb and how you write a verb in the context of a procedure. I hope you had a good session so far, halfway through the session, another half remaining, and I hope you are getting a clarity on taking a question on evidence in exam paper. Okay, so a break and post break will start fresh from B part and the C part. Welcome back after the break. So now let's resume with part B and part C. Now in the B part, we have 7 marks. Let's see how we are taking these 7 marks. Now 7, 4 minus, from 7 we need to minus 4.5, right? Let's put the heading first on the word file. We are now working on impairment. That is the B part of the question. Impairment. And we have 7 marks for impairment. And the first thing I need to write under impairment is submitters. Followed by that, I need to write evidence. Evidence in working paper file. Now, if anyone is good on MTR, things in the exam paper, that matters could be 4.5 marks and evidence is 2.5 marks. So technically, I should be writing just 3 evidences and 3 matters. Okay, knowing that, let's see how to take the question. Now, it says, at the year end, the management performed an impairment review on its retail outlets, which are cash generating units, for the purpose of conducting an impairment review. While internet sales grew rapidly during the year, sales from retail outlets declined, prompting the review. So there is an indicator for impairment, right? At the 31st of March 2017, the carrying amount of the assets directly attributable to the retail outlets totaled 137 million. That includes both tangible assets and the goodwill. So the carrying amount of the retail outlets was 137 million. Now let's see how much has been impaired. During the year, the management received a number of offers from the parties interested in purchasing the retail outlets from an average of 125 million. So what's the fair value? The fair value is 125 million. So the fair value is 125 million of the retail outlets. They also estimated the disposal cost to be 1.5 million. So the estimated disposal cost is 1.5 million. So fair value less the cost of disposal. So that's 125 minus 1.5. So that becomes 123.5. So fair value less the cost to sell. Based upon their experience of corporate acquisitions and disposal, management estimated the value in use. The value in use is 128. And should we take higher of both or lower of both for the recoverable amount? We should take higher of them, right? So higher is 128. This is based upon historic cash flows, which is very wrong. We'll come to that criticism, which is based upon the historic cash flows, not future cash flows, of the retail outlets, inflated at a journal rate of 1%, inflated at a journal rate of 1% per annum. They argued this reflects the poor performance of the retail outlet. So 128 is a higher number, right? So 128 minus 128 minus 137, which was the carrying amount. So how much is the impairment? The impairment is $9 million. So management, as per the management calculation, they found the right number, right? They found $9 million as the right number. Now we have to be skeptical as an auditor, right? The impairment was allocated against the tangible assets on a pro rata basis based upon the original carrying amount of each assets. Based upon original carrying amount of each assets. So have they allocated impairment to the goodwill? Is that technically wrong? Should they have first allocated the impairment to the goodwill? Should they have first allocated impairment to the goodwill, right? And after allocating the impairment to the goodwill, if any impairment loss was left, then the remainder should have been allocated on a pro rata basis to the tangible assets. So Can we say the goodwill is overstated because they have not allocated any impairment to the goodwill? Is the goodwill overstated? Yes, the goodwill is overstated, right? Because they didn't allocated any impairment loss to the goodwill. So they only allocated that to the tangible assets. So they should have first allocated it to the goodwill and then to the tangible assets. So one mistake is the allocation, of the impairment loss, and one mistake is the estimates. Estimates are risky, right? Fair value is an estimate, right? Fair value is an estimate. They have estimated the cost of disposal. That is a second estimate. And the value in use. Have they determined the right value in use? They have used the historic cash flows. They should have used the future cash flows of the retail outlets. So is there a mistake they've done? First of all, there are estimates, right? So can we believe on the 125 million number? Because that is an estimated number, $125 million. Can we believe on the disposal cost? Disposal cost is also estimated. So can we believe on that 1.5 million? Is there a risk that the impairment loss could have been 11 million? The impairment loss could have been 12 million. Management thinks it has been impaired by 9. Are we sure about the adequacy of $9 million here? Should we be skeptical about $9 million? So let's find the materiality. We will find materiality of the impairment loss, right? Which is basically the issue in this question, right? So let's find the materiality of the, okay, the impairment loss of $9 million. The impairment loss of $9 million is how much of the profit? Because 8.4% of the profit. Okay, the impairment loss of $9 million is 8.4% of the profit before tax. And should we identify that as a total asset? Will impairment loss affects the balance sheet? Do impairment loss affects the balance sheet? It Do impairment loss affects the value of intangible assets and tangible assets? Okay, but it's less than 1% of the assets, right? Can you give me the exact percentage? How much is the exact percentage to the total assets? Okay, 0.46. It is 8.4% of the profit before tax and 0.46% of the total assets. Because you're commenting, so you have to complete the comment, right? Thus the impairment loss is material to the profit, before tax, and immaterial to the total assets. See, you completed your comment. So it was material to one and immaterial to the second, to the total assets. Full stop. Change of paragraph, you come out with okay, then comes down with the next para, which is the treatment. Impairment loss should be recognized when the carrying amount of the retail outlets, when the carrying amount of the assets exceeds its recoverable amount. The recoverable amount is the higher of fair value less cost to sell and the value in use. The management has determined the impairment loss. The management has determined the impairment loss. However, there could be a risk that the impairment loss, there could be a risk that the impairment loss is wrongly calculated. There is a risk that the impairment loss is wrongly calculated because the determination of the recoverable amount is very subjective, and involves estimates and involve management estimates. The value in use itself was wrongly calculated based upon historic cash flows, future cash flows. That is one problem, right? Thus the impairment loss could be understated. That's one problem. Now you have a second problem. The second problem is the impairment loss was wrongly allocated to the tangible assets. It should had been firstly allocated to the goodwill, and any remainder impairment loss should had been allocated on pro rata basis to the tangible assets. Thus, goodwill is overstated because you have not allocated the impairment loss to goodwill. Now see, you have more marks here for matters. Technically, I think I've made all my marks on matters. I started first with 1.5 marks telling examiner that the materiality of the impairment loss. Then we got down that we wrote the treatment and we found the risk. So this paragraph, the second paragraph, contains the treatment followed by the risk. So technically I got my 4.5 marks from the treatment and risk. Then I wrote another treatment and a risk, 1.5 and 1.5. I wrote the treatment that it should be first allocated to the goodwill, then allocated to the tangible asset, and then I wrote the risk. The risk is the goodwill is overstated. So technically that means I have taken my 3 and 3, 6 and 1.5. I've taken my 7.5 marks till here. 7.5 marks. But can I just write matters without evidence? Can I just write matters without evidence? Can I just write matters without evidence? Have I taken 7.5 marks? Can you understand how I took 7.5 marks? But can I just complete my answer here and start the C part in the exam paper? Okay, let's find the solution for that. Okay, let me take you to some very important resource. This is from the examiner conference. If you can just read this out in front of your screen. Can you just read this point examiner is telling in front of your screen? Let me highlight that for you so that you get a clarity here. Can you just read this, what the examiner is trying to tell you? This is what we are doing in the class today. Just read the red box. Just read the red box. It says, the marking scheme says 1 mark for each relevant point. What happens if a candidate only give matters in their answer? So the examiner is saying we don't cap the marks that are available for matters, so it is possible. So examiner is saying I am not capping the marks for matters, so it's up to you if you want to take all marks from matters. So we don't cap the marks that are available for the matters, so it is possible, in principle, for a candidate to score full marks for an answer that only contains meta. So far the examiner is so good. Examiner is saying we don't cap the marks that are available for matters, so it is possible, in principle, for candidates to score full marks for an answer that only contains matters. But then the examiner says, but they would be very unlikely to do this. But have we found that exactly in this case of impairment that we were likely to do this? Examiner is saying, but they would be very unlikely to do this. But is he saying that if you are likely to do this, he will give you all the marks on matters? Is he saying that? Right, this is not a resource, right, Rafid Jamal, which you can get from anywhere. This is only a resource which is exclusively available by ACCA to its tutors and to its platinum learning providers. So this is a resource which I'm just sharing for the sake of knowledge, right? Because this is a resource which is only shared between ACCA and the tutors of the platinum learning providers. This is not a resource for student. But are you getting the question answer session of the examiner? Are you getting the clarity? So can I write all matters without evidences? Is the examiner giving me a permission for that? Yes or no? Yes, the marking scheme have now changed. Leave aside that, the marking scheme has now changed. But is the examiner giving me a permission I can write all matters if that is possible? So, but he's saying at the end of the day, he's saying, but they would be very unlikely to be able to do this. So you should advise candidates not to take this approach. So you should advise candidates not to take this approach. So what should I be teaching you? The examiner is telling to me, being a tutor, you should advise candidates not to take this approach. So you cannot write all matters with zero evidences, at least write some evidences. At least write some evidences. So if I go back to my question, if I delete my last paragraph, I don't write this paragraph in the exam paper. Will I have space for writing evidences? If I delete my last paragraph, will I have space for writing evidences then? So I only now have 4.5 marks. I'm not writing the last paragraph in the exam paper. So can I substitute them with evidences now? Can I write evidences now in the answer? Evidence in the working paper file? So examiner is saying, yes, you can write all matters. You can write all matters without evidences. I have no problems with that. But he's saying to the tutors, you should not encourage this practice. So I am not encouraging this practice at all, right? So I am telling you in this practice to pass session that you should write evidences and matters both. You can write one more and one less, but write both. Write both in them. The last paragraph, Nafis Muhammad, is 1.5 and 1.5 because there is a treatment and a risk. The treatment is it should first be allocated to the goodwill. That is the treatment. And then there is a risk that the goodwill is overstated. Okay, let's find the evidence in the working paper file. Should I be needing evidence? Number one, case. During the year, the management received a number of offers from the interested parties in purchasing the retail outlets for an average of 125 million. Can I have the copies of these offers to confirm the $125 million? Can I have copies of these offers? Received a number of offers from the parties for an average of 125 million. So can I take these offers, copies of these offers to confirm the fair value? Right? So can we take these copies of the offers which came from the interested party? Okay. Number one, copy of the offers which came from the potential buyers to confirm the appropriateness of the fair value of retail outlets. Where this copy of offers come from? This came from the case, right? Copy of the offers which came from the potential buyer. Where I got to know this? I got to know this from the case, right? So this will confirm the fair value. Number two, they also estimated the disposal cost at to be 1.5 million based upon their experience. So can I have the notes of discussions to confirm what was their basis of estimates of the disposal cost of 1.5 million? So can I also take the notes of discussions to confirm the disposal cost? Notes of discussions, notes of discussion with the management. Notes of discussion with the management to confirm the underlying basis used in determining the disposal cost of $1.5 million, because that was an estimate of the management, right? So I just told you, for estimates you normally discuss things with management. Okay, then next, management estimated the value in use to be 128 million. This was based upon the historic cash flows. Can I take the management impairment review working? Can that give me everything in absolute form? Can I take the working of the management regarding the impairment? Will it give me the fair value, the disposable cost, and the value in use? So can I take the working of the management? They must have done a working for impairment loss. So can I take the copy of management working pertaining to impairment review to confirm the assumptions, to confirm the appropriateness of the assumptions taken to determine the loss of $9 million. So will this working confirm me the absolute value of 9 million? Yes, I can also have the results of recalculation. For the impairment loss of $9 million. I could have results of recalculation to confirm the adequacy of the impairment loss of $9 million. See, more than marks, already number fourth. So I'm not going beyond this, right? You can make your own procedures beyond. We can also take the representation letter from the management, because this is so subjective, right? Even the inventory cost was so subjective. This impairment is so subjective. This whole question in June 17, ABC, is all based upon estimates. The cost of inventory was estimate, impairment is an estimate, warranty provision itself is an estimate. So examiner took a theme of this 20 mark, and the theme of these 20 marks were all estimates. So can we take a representation letter for impairment? Is impairment something subjective? Is fair value, value in use something subjective? Can we take a representation letter? Okay, so I've taken more than my marks, right? Currently, we have taken 4 marks from evidences. We just need to take 2.5. So are we in excess of marks? I hope you're understanding. the sense of taking marks, right? So I'm not writing more evidences, right? Let's start with the part C. The part C is warranty provision. So let's start with the part C. Warranty provisions. Now, under the warranty provisions, I should first write the matters. Then under the warranty provision, I should write evidence in working paper file. How many marks I have for warranty provisions? I have 6 marks for warranty provisions. So that means straight away, the matters can give me 4.5 marks. So technically for evidence in the working paper file, I am left with 1.5 marks. So how many evidences will I be writing in the working paper file? 1 or 2? How many evidences will I be writing in the working paper file for warranty provisions? 2, right? Okay, and how many matters will I be writing for warranty provision? 3. Okay, so a lot of you are getting on track, right, for identifying. Yes, it confirms the appropriateness of it confirms the completeness of the impairment loss, right? The it confirms the completeness of the impairment loss, the MRL. Okay, let's find the answer. Matters. Okay, let's go back to the case. Okay, how much is the value of impairment at the year end? The value of impairment at the year end is $7 million. So please take the year end value. Year end value is $7 million. So let's first tell me what is the materiality. Warranty provision at the year end. Warranty provision at the year end is $7 million, which is, first tell me the total assets, which is how much of the total assets? Okay, PBT is 6.54%, noted. It is 0.36% of the total asset, okay, which is 0.36% of the total assets, and 6.54% of the profit before tax. Thus, it is material. Thus, it is immaterial to the total assets and material to the profit before tax. We got the M. Now we need to work on T. Warranty provision should be recognized. Warranty provision should be recognized because the company have a constructive obligation. The company have a constructive obligation as they give each year. I'm reading the paragraph, right? Each year, management makes a provision for jewelry returned under warranty. So is the management giving warranty to its customer? So does the company have a constructive obligation to recognize a warranty provision? Do they give warranty to its customer to return jewelry? Yes, provision is a balance sheet item, but do provision not affect the profit? What is the accounting entry of a provision? What you debit in provision and what you credit in provision? Does provision not affect your operating expenses? The materiality level for profit is 5 to 10%. 5 to 10%. It is a range 5 to 10%. Okay, so let's go back writing the answer. Warranty provision should be recognized because the company have a constructive obligation as they give customers a warranty, as they give customer option to return the jewelry items. So the company have an obligation, right? Warranty provision should be recognized because the company have a constructive obligation as they give customer option to return the jewelry items, which can be reliably measured, which can be reliably measured. And there is a probable outflow. There is a probable outflow. All the conditions of provision, right? There is an obligation. It can be reliably measured, and there is a probable outflow, right? Because the customers will return to us, and we need to replace them. So there is a probable outflow. So warranty provision should be recognized. That is the treatment. However, there is a risk associated with warranty provision. There is a risk associated with warranty provision. That is, provisions are estimates which are inherently risky. The management knows the return level, right, Lisa? Management knows the return levels of jewelry each year. They know how much jewelry is returned each year. So they know the probable outflow each year of how much should be a warranty provision. So however, there is a risk associated with warranty provision. That is, provisions are estimates. Provisions are estimates which are inherently risky. Provisions are estimates which are inherently risky, and thus the provisions could be understated. Provisions could be understated. Now let's see, is there something in the case? It says the management estimates the return level. So estimates the return level is very risky here, right? So that estimate could be wrong. So however, there is a risk associated with warranty provision. That is, provisions are estimates which are inherently risky, and thus the provision could be understated. In this case, the management estimates the return level which could be risky. The management estimates the return level which could be risky. Full stop. So what is the estimate in this case? The estimate in this case is the return level. So the management can manipulate the return level, right, to show a lower provision. Okay, now writing the MTR, we need to work on the evidence. Should I take the working of the management about the return levels? Management estimates the return level. Should I either have a notes of discussions to confirm management estimates of return level? And can I take the working of the management for return levels of rings and bracelets and watches and earrings? So can I take the return level working from the management? So number one, evidence, copy of the management working, pertaining to return levels, copy of the management working pertaining to the returns levels to confirm the completeness of the provision recognized, to confirm the completeness of the provision, to confirm the completeness of the warranty provision recognized by the management. So the management must be having a working, right? Management working for return levels. They must be having some records for that, right? Yes, we are looking at the bottom line provision, right? We are working on materialities of the bottom line provision, not the movement, right? The movement will help us taking evidence. Okay, so each year the management makes a provision. It is based upon an estimate return level and is calculated on an annual basis by the sales director. Can we also do the recalculation of the warranty provision because it is calculated based upon the return level? So can we also do the results of recalculations for this? Because the management calculates the warranty provision. So can we also have the results of recalculation? Results of recalculation to confirm results of recalculation of warranty provision to confirm it was accurately calculated by the management. So can we have the results of recalculation of warranty provision? Because the management have calculated that, right? Can we also take a representation letter in the exam paper for warranty provision? Is there a risk in warranty provision? Is there a risk in warranty provision, right? So can we take a representation letter? Will I say copy of the representation letter? I'll simply say a representation letter to confirm the completeness, of the warranty provision charged by management, to confirm the completeness of the warranty provision charged by the management and the adequacy of the return levels estimated by the sales director. So more than the marks, right? More than the marks. Yes, Zainab Abbas, that's right. You can write that in exam paper. Yes, Mohammed Sharoz, that is also right. You can use that in exam paper. Yes, mostly evidence on estimates are the same. In this question, everything was estimated. So more or less we came across the same answers. Okay, now that is one complete question we did on evidence. I hope you're understanding the marking scheme. I hope you're understanding the marking scheme of MTR. And I hope you're understanding the marking scheme of evidence. Hamad Salim, the matters are not journal. The matters are very specific. We found the M from the case study, right? And we found the treatment from the case. The treatment was the warranty provision. How can it be journal? It was so specific. It was through the case. The case was telling there is a warranty provision. I didn't wrote journal provision. I wrote warranty provision. It was very case specific. And I see my last line. In the case, the management estimates the return level could be risky. So how it is journal? Okay, let's start doing one quick exercise on procedures. This was an exercise on evidence, and you know evidence should start with a document, right? So now let's start doing an exercise on procedures, which should start with verb. Okay, for that, I have to show you something here, which you will read and we'll start writing procedures. Okay, you can see this short question in front of you, which has been taken from the past paper. Suppose I put the requirement on top, recommend the procedures on the license. Okay, just read this case quickly in like a minute so I can start demonstrating how you write procedures on license. And the procedures again has to be case specific. Yes, Ria. The unutilized provision reversed during the year itself is risk. You can identify that and write in the exam paper. That is the risk of creative accounting. That means the company recognized more provision in the last year, which they have reversed this year. So it itself brings doubts on the management estimates That means management have recognized so much provision in the last year, which they have reversed now. So that means management does not make right estimates. So estimates are risky, right? So they reverse the provision. They reversed the provision last time of last year provisions this year. So you can mention that point, Ria, as the risk of creative accounting, the reversal of the unutilized provision. Okay, if you have read this question on license, it says recommend the procedures on license, for example, and there is a case followed by that. And we need to verify, we need to write procedures. Now, when you're writing procedures, you will not start the way you are starting evidence. Evidence needs to start with tangible documents. Now, it will be very different. Let's see how to go about it. Number one, ZCG purchased a license at a cost of $65 million, and the license lasts for 10 years. So they purchased a license. So first of all, I should have review the board minutes for the approval of the license, purchased, for the approval of the license purchased to operate in Farland, to operate in Farland. Then I will say, okay, the board has given the approval. Now I should review the purchase agreement, review the license purchase agreement. See, I'm now writing it in the form of procedures. Review the license purchase agreement. Review the license purchase agreement. Review the license purchase agreement to confirm what? To confirm number one, the cost of the license, to confirm the cost of the license, that is $65 million, and to confirm the tenure of the license. The tenure of the license, that is 10 years. So I will review the license agreement for the cost of the license and for the tenure of the license, which is 10 years license, right? And also for the terms and conditions, to confirm the terms and conditions associated with license. Terms and conditions associated with the license. Okay, number three. Since I got the license, so I must have paid for it. So I can review the bank statement. Review the bank statement to confirm the payment made for the purchase of the license. For the purchase of the license, that is $65 million. Okay, now comes the second line. Since purchasing the license, ZCG established its network coverage in Farland, and the network became operational on July 1st, 2016. So should I charge the amortization from 1st of January 2015, or should I charge the amortization on the license from 1st of July 2016? When should I charge the amortization? From 1st Jan 2015 or from 1st July 2016? From 1st July 2016, right? Amortization is charged when something becomes operational. So it became operational in July 16. So can I recalculate the amortization? Recalculate the amortization expense? Recalculate the amortization expense? Is it possible to show examiner the working of amortization expense in the bracket? The cost is how much? The cost is $65. The cost is $65 million. Should I divide it by 10 years or should I divide it by 8.5 years? Should I divide it by 10 years or should I divide it by 8.5 years? I should divide it by 8.5 years, right? Because I'm starting to amortize it from the 1st of July when it becomes operational. So 8.5 years multiply by July, and the year end of the company is December, right? So multiply by 6 into 12 is equal to how much? What is the answer? The answer is $3.82 million. Okay, the answer is dollar 3.82 million. Okay, I recalculate the amortization expense. Now, can I review the breakup of the operating expense, breakup of operating expenses to confirm that, to confirm, to confirm that an accurate amount of amortization was charged? Should I confirm the breakup of operating expense to confirm that the management has charged 3.82? The management has not charged less than 3.82. So review the breakup of operating expense to confirm that an accurate amount of amortization was charged. Accurate amount of amortization was charged during the year. Rizwan, you need to clarify your accounting rules, right? You cannot charge it on 10 years. You need to charge it from when it became operational. The license was for 10 years, but you cannot start the amortization of the license till the time it became operational. So it became operational after 1.5 years. So technically, how much is the life of the license? 8.5 years. Okay, then the last point. The license was recognized as an intangible asset, which is right. Since the network became operational, the customer demand has been less than anticipated due to a competitor offering a special deal to its existing customer to encourage them not to change provider. Is there an indicator of impairment? Is there an indicator of impairment? The customer demand has been less due to the competitor actions. So should I ask management, have they performed an impairment review or not? Should I discuss with management, have you determined the recoverable amount of the license or not? So should I discuss with management whether any impairment review was performed? Discuss with management whether any impairment review was performed to determine the recoverable amount, to determine the recoverable amount, considering there is considering the customer considering the customer demand has been less. Considering the customer demand has been less. Can I also review the management working for impairment if they've done so? Can I also review the management working for impairment if they've done so? First, I discuss with them, and if they say yes, we have done the impairment or we have done the working, can I also review that? So can I also review the management impairment review working? Management impairment review working to confirm that the management did identified the recoverable amount, did identify the recoverable amount, did identify the recoverable amount and the assumptions taken in determining the recoverable amount. Yes, recalculate the amortization expense is like a recalculation procedure, right? No such things like confirming the accuracy. So see, we wrote 7 procedures so far, but are you understanding the procedures are starting with a verb? Is my rule clear? Procedures should start with a verb. Is that true? Are all of them starting with a verb? Are all procedures starting with the verb? They are right. And are they starting with, do they have a reason? Do they have a reason why? And do they come from case? Are they case specific? Are they coming from the case? They are coming from the case, right? And every procedure contains 1 mark. So I just read. Okay, if you want the fourth procedure would look like this: review the amortization expense, recalculate the amortization expense to confirm its accuracy. That will complete the reason, because normally we do recalculation for accuracies, right? Is that clear with procedures? One more exercise on procedures. Yes, the procedure number 2 will still get 1 mark, right? Review the license purchase agreement to confirm so many things. Okay, let's do another exercise on procedures. Okay, can you look at this case in front of you? Can you recommend procedures to me on this case? See the case in front of your screen. I've taken it from the past paper. We need to recommend procedures in this case as well. Procedures. In January 15, cash of $8 million was invested in a portfolio of equity shares held in the listed company. How much procedures I can do just on this one line? $8 million cash was invested in a portfolio of bank statement. Number one, I need to maximize the procedure. So I'll do every possible procedure here. I will say review the board minutes to confirm the approval and the business rationale to invest surplus cash in portfolio of equity shares. Should I also review the breakup of portfolio? Review the breakup of the portfolio of equity shares to confirm the number of shares, bought in each company in portfolio. Review the breakup of portfolio to confirm the number of shares bought in each company in portfolio. Then next, review the bank statement. Review the bank statement because I must have invested the cash, so I must have paid for it. Review the bank statement to confirm the payment of $8 million made for shares. Review the bank statement to confirm the payment of $8 million made for shares purchased in listed companies. For shares purchased in listed companies. For shares purchased in listed company. So cash of $8 million was invested, right, in a portfolio of equity shares. So I should have a portfolio. I should have a breakup of portfolio, which is to be held in short term as a speculative investment. The board must have given the approval of that, right? The shares are recognized as a financial asset at a cost of 8 million. Now this question was on risk, right? So is that a risk? They've held it at cost, whereas the fair value at the year end was 6 million. So this question was on risk. So is that a risk of material misstatement that they've recorded it at a cost when they should have recorded it at the fair value? So is the short-term investment overstated? That was the risk, right? This is the June 15 question, right? And in a June 15 question, you had risk and a procedure. So Can I recalculate the fair value? Can I review the fair value? Review the fair value of the listed, review the fair value of the shares held in portfolio. No, not review, agree. Can I agree the fair value? Can I agree the fair value of the shares held in portfolio as at 31st, as at the 31st May 2015? From where should I agree this? Agree the fair value of the shares held in the portfolio as at the 31st May 2015. Agree the fair value of the shares held in the portfolio to what? Agree the fair value of the shares held in the portfolio to the stock exchange quotations. Stock exchange quotations. So I can take the stock exchange quotation as on the 31st of May, right? And I can take the closing price of the stock exchange as on the 31st May. And can I confirm the fair value? Can I agree the fair value of the share? Now, can I recalculate the absolute fair value of the portfolio? Can I recalculate? Can I recalculate the fair value of the portfolio? Fair value of the portfolio at the year end to confirm its accuracy. To confirm its accuracy. That is dollar. That is dollar 6 million. See, just from a short case, I got 5 procedures. But are they all starting with a verb again? Are they all starting with a verb again? So can you see the verbs? Review, 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 agree, recalculate. Can you see the verbs? So am I breaking my rule which I made at the beginning of the class that the procedure has to start with a verb? It should have a reason. It should be case specific. It should come from the case, and every procedure carry 1 mark. So have I broken my rules on evidence and procedures? Are you understanding procedures? Okay, now one last thing on procedures. Please do read the examiner article on procedure. I am discussing some summary from the examiner article. I am discussing some summary from the examiner article, but please do read the examiner article in full. This is a summary from the examiner article, which is very, very important. Summary from the examiner article on procedures. In this article, the examiner has said many things, but some of them are very important. The examiner says that the student used these 3 procedures a lot in exam paper. Student use the following 3 procedures a lot in exam paper, but do silly mistakes. He's not discouraging you. The examiner is not discouraging you of using these procedures, but he's saying that you do use them a lot, but do silly mistakes. And he has highlighted those silly mistakes in the article. Let's see what they are. First, he thinks the examiner thinks that the student use the board minutes a lot, but they don't use them very properly. I need to clarify that. Wait. Second, he thinks the student use agree the financial statements a lot. Agree something to financial statement. And he thinks student use review the board minutes many times. Students say agree the financial statement for something a lot. And then a student says seek a representation letter. Seek a representation letter. So examiner says student use these 3 a lot. He's not discouraging you, but he's saying you do silly mistakes on them. Let's find what are silly mistakes on each three of them. Now, all of you know review the board minute is a procedure, right? But what are the do's and don'ts? What are the do's and don'ts for review the board minutes? When you say review the board minutes, we need the board minutes, right, for some specific events, for some specific transactions, for some specific issues during the year. I cannot just take a board minute for the approval of a vehicle purchased. That is just one vehicle. And I am writing in the exam paper, review the board minutes for the vehicle purchased. The examiner says this is wrong. Please read the examiner article, right? Examiner is saying you cannot just take an approval of a board on one single item. That is, review the vehicle purchased, review the machinery purchased. So you cannot write this way in the exam paper that I say review the board minutes for the approval of the vehicle purchased, or review the board minutes for the vehicle purchased, or review the board minutes for the plant and machinery purchased. The examiner is saying no, I will not give you any marks for this, and I will put this in red and cross through. Examiner is criticizing you. Examiner is saying you can take a board minutes for this, not cross through the right one. Examiner says you can say review the board minutes for the approval of the capital expenditure, for the approval of the capital expenditure budget, for the approval of the capital expenditure budget for the whole year. So the board will approve the capex budget, right? Will the board approve every single item purchased? No. The board have approved the capex budget. Now you can buy anything under the capex budget. You can buy anything under the capex budget. But will the board give approval for every single item purchased? Never. So the examiner does not like that. The second thing, you can review the board minutes, right, for major things. You can review board minutes for some very important decisions of the board, right? Asset held for sale. Asset held for sale. You can review the board minutes for acquisition of a subsidiary. Such important things, right? Such important things. You can review the board minutes for a disposal of a subsidiary. So for important things, very important things, you take board minutes. Now, in our case, we can take board minutes for short-term investments. Short-term investment is very important thing, right? Because we had a surplus cash. So board must have given an approval for short-term investments. Important things, right? Yes, we can take board minutes for redundancy plans, for redundancy approvals. We can take board minutes for redundancy approvals. Yes, we can take board minutes for share-based payments. Important things, right? So please be logical. Then next, agree the financial statements. Examiner says, a student a lot of times says agree the financial statement. But when you agree the financial statement, suppose you say agree the financial statement to confirm the receivable balance from Mr. A. See how wrong the statement is? Examiner says that on the financial statement you don't get the breakups. The financial statement contains the total receivables. How can I agree the financial statement to confirm the receivable balance from Mr. A? Will the balance sheet give me the receivable balance of Mr. A, or will the balance sheet give me the total receivable balance? So I can agree. I can agree the breakup. I can agree the breakup. I can agree the balance from Mr. A to the breakup of receivables. Is that right? Can I agree the balance of Mr. A to the breakup of receivables? The first one is an absolute wrong answer. Cross through, right? I can agree the balance from Mr. A to the breakups of receivables. Lot of things needs breakup because on a balance sheet there is an accumulative value. So how can you agree the accumulative value? Yes, if I want to confirm that the asset held for sale is classified as a current asset, can I agree that to the SOFP? Can I agree that to the SOFP that the asset held for sale is being classified as a classified as a current asset? Because that comes on the face of the SOFP, right? So if you are using the agree the financial statement, things realistically, whether on the financial statement will you find it or not? Because normally on the financial statement you find amounts in aggregate. On a financial statement, you don't find amount in breakup basis. So that is the reason we take the breakups from the management. So please do read the examiner article on agree the financial statement, because the examiner does not like most of the procedures you make on agree the financial statement. So read the article very carefully. And then the last thing, representation letter. Examiner says, yes, you can use the representation letter, but remember the representation letter is used only for subjective areas. You can use representation letter for fair values. You can use representation letters for estimates. You can use representation letters for provisions. You can use representation letters for uh, related party transactions, because we're not sure whether the management has given us all related party transactions. Related party transactions. Any complex areas, right? For any complex areas, you can take representations. But I cannot take representation for the existence of the fixed asset, because I can go and see the existence of the fixed asset. So I cannot say, okay, I'm not verifying the existence of the fixed asset, I'll take representation from the management. So examiner is very critical about use of a representation letter. So please do read it effectively, right? I hope all of you will read the article of the examiner on procedure after the end of the session today. That is a very, very important article. So all of you who are still blur on procedures can clarify that through the examiner article on procedure. Now, that is bringing us to the end of the day 2 agenda today. You have 2 home assignment questions. One is December 14 question number 2, and one is June 14 question number 3. Do them as home assignments. Please do read the examiner article on procedures. And we are meeting tomorrow for day 3 agenda, which is EPQ, ethical, professional, and quality control. And please be in the session tomorrow, because you will be amazed to learn how easy EPQ is. How easy EPQ is. I will be demonstrating 2 questions in the session tomorrow, June 17 question number 3, and I will be demonstrating June 16 question number 4B, to give you a very clear guidance on EPQ. So we are meeting tomorrow for EPQ. I hope you had a good session today, and I hope you got some clarifications on writing methods, marking scheme, writing evidence, marking scheme, and writing procedures and the marking scheme. So if you have learned something out of the session today, please do implement that. And again, you are edging near to your exam paper with each passing day. So today is Tuesday, and you have paper on Monday. So best of luck, prepare effectively, and I'll meet you tomorrow with the day 3 of the practice to pass session being organized by ACCA. Okay, it's time to say you goodbye, Allah Hafiz, and I'm signing off.